So I think there's still a lot of details that are not yet clear. Of course, I was still in the government last year when we were negotiating the agreement about the end of Operation Inherent Resolve, and the conclusion of that mission in Iraq is supposed to be at the end of September 2025. What that looks like in practice, I think we still need a little bit more clarification from both the Trump administration and the Iraqi government. Does that mean that everyone, all U.S. troops and forces will be departing Ain al-Assad? And what kinds of security forces might remain? I think, last year, there were still a lot of details that needed to be discussed bilaterally. And what the future of the U.S.-Iraq security relationship looks like depends upon not only where and how many troops are present in Iraq, but also the kinds of things we're going to work on together in the future. I think it depends on the details, and I think those details are still not clear. There's a possibility that troops are being repositioned to go to Erbil, or perhaps even that there are some troops that will depart and move to Kuwait. There's also a possibility that there may be some U.S. advisors that remain to work on bilateral security cooperation. But I don't think there's been a lot of clarity yet on those specific details. So I think, it's important to note that, the position of the administration is really widely held, across both Republican and Democratic lines. And I think, the core problem that U.S. policymakers have with the Popular Mobilization Forces bill is that it doesn't really address the problem of accountability. And it doesn't address the problem of Iraqi government salaries going to either individuals or units which have been part of terrorism. And some of these units are designated by the United States and other international actors. But some of them have also, not only been involved in terrorist acts against Americans, whether kidnapping or killing Americans, but they've also taken activities and they've taken steps which are damaging to Iraqi security, even threatening some of Iraq's neighbors with violence and rockets. And so I think any bill that is put forward to reform the Popular Mobilization Forces is going to have to address this core challenge of accountability and ensuring that units that are not acting in the best interests of the Iraqi government are not being paid by the Iraqi government. So I don't think at that time the PMF bill was really a topic of discussion, but I think just more broadly, there have been ongoing conversations between the U.S. administration, multiple U.S. administrations and the Iraqi government about the need to gain full control over the militias. And I think that's a position which the Prime Minister himself has asserted, that it is important for the Iraqi government to maintain control over all the security forces in the country. And I think that's an important topic of ongoing conversation. So I think, putting on the hat for my former position, I think, in general, the United States has often, the government has often urged both sides to engage in a really active dialogue to find a solution. I think the problem, from my personal view, I'd say, one of the problems here is that it's a problem which has not had a long-term solution. And so almost every month there is a need for an ongoing discussion about the salaries, about the transfer of the salaries. And so, I hope that there will be a dialogue to reach an actually longer term and sustainable solution to these problems of revenue sharing in the budget.
Yes.
There's always a solution. I know it is a complicated issue, and I hope that both Baghdad and Erbil will engage really actively to find a solution that can resolve this once and for all. So, the Kurdistan region has been, a long-term partner for the United States, and of course there is a lot of support for the people of Kurdistan in Washington, and I'm sure that's something that you've experienced while you're here. I think, there is, a recognition in Washington that the government in Kurdistan and the people of Kurdistan really share a lot of values with America. And that's why the Kurdish government and Kurdish politicians have been a very strong partner for Americans and for the American government, and why their voices have been particularly useful in advocating for our shared interests in Baghdad. Well, I'm a long-term believer that stronger economic partnership and stronger investment between two countries does kind of strengthen and build that partnership. And so, overall, I think that's important not only between U.S. companies in federal Iraq, but also important in Kurdistan as well. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to shift this partnership from one really based on security interests and the presence of U.S. military forces, to one that's broader, that includes, shared values, stronger people-to-people ties, but certainly stronger economic ties. And so I hope that we'll continue to see U.S. companies find opportunities to invest both in Kurdistan and Iraq more broadly. Yeah, I think for those of us in Washington who are following the events and watching the videos, it's quite a shocking scene. And so I think certainly you regret to see any kind of loss of life. You regret to see that kind of violence. Those are very serious allegations that have been leveled against Lahore, Talabani, that there was this active plot. And so I hope there'll be an investigation. I hope it'll be fair and transparent, so that the people of Kurdistan and the international community have a better understanding of what transpired. But certainly, I think everyone would have preferred to have seen a much calmer scene of a peaceful arrest, or of an investigation that proceeded in a very calm and transparent way. And so I hope that's what we're going to see moving forward. I think overall, Iraq has experienced over the past several years, Iraq and Kurdistan, a period of really sustained stability. And I think it's important that to remember that any of these kind of scenes of violence kind of remind people of the violence that has occurred in Iraq in the past. And so I think what everyone wants to see moving forward, I'm sure the people of Kurdistan and the people of Iraq overall, is stability and security. And so I think the less we see fighting in the streets, rockets and drones, the better for the future of Iraq and its stability and prosperity. For hosting me.